Begin today the Gemara and Daf Mem Hey at the Mishnah at the beginning of the Yomad. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Hanochrim, Ha'oivdim, Esaharim, Goyim that are worshipping Avoda Zara, but what's this Avoda Zara? Mountains. Or Vesakvois, hills. Hein Mutarin, so these mountains themselves are mutter to have Hana from them. You're not going to say that now because someone served this as an Avoda Zara, it says there in the Mishnah Goyim, but it would be the same, it doesn't make a difference who serves them. That you're not going to say because it was worshipped as an Avoda Zara, so now you can't carve out any stones from this to use for anything. You're allowed to use it and to plant there, whatever you want. But umasha aleyen, however, if there's something that was placed on it as a covering, you plated it with gold or silver when they were worshipping this Avoda Zara, then asurin. Whatever you plated it with, that was to beautify the Avoda Zara. That has the halacha of a beautification for the Avoda Zara, and it will be yasa b'hana. Shenema, the pasuk says, "Leisachmoid kesav v'zav aleim." Do not desire silver or gold which is plated on Avoda Zara to beautify the Avoda Zara. This is what's called noi Avoda Zara. And not only Avoda Zara itself, but even something that's there to beautify Avoda Zara is also to have any anah from. We learned before in the Masechta, there's Avoda Zara itself that's asa b'anah. There's what's called takrevis Avoda Zara, when you sacrifice anything for Avoda Zara. That's what's called mishamshi Avoda Zara, serves Avoda Zara. And here it mentions noi Avoda Zara, something that beautifies Avoda Zara is also asa b'anah. So Rashi here clarifies that this is an interesting concept because the hill itself, the rock itself, the earth itself is mutter b'hana. But nevertheless, when you plate it with something else, gold, it's considered to be a beautification for the Avoda Zara, and it's going to be aser. So Rashi says this is a gzeiras hakosef, that although the rock itself is mutter and it's not defined as an Avoda Zara, but yet the plating of it, the beautification of it, is called Nay Avoda Zara and it'll be aser. That's Rashi's shita. Another detail Rashi adds is that even though the rock itself is not an Avoda Zara, but anybody that is going to serve this as an Avoda Zara will be chayiv misa like any other person that serves Avoda Zara. That's chayiv misa. Although the object itself does not become aser as an Avoda Zara, but nevertheless the person that worships it will be chayiv misa for the action that he did, for the fact that he's serving an Avoda Zara. It doesn't matter. On one hand, the object itself is not an Avoda Zara, but the action that the person is doing, serving Avoda Zara, for that he will be chayiv misa. Taisus over here, there's a long Taisus, a big discussion on this, and he says, one of the svaras that Taisus says is, it's difficult to understand, how could you say that the object itself, the rock itself, is not Avoda Zara, but the plating of it is Avoda Zara. It's very hard to understand that. Rashi says it's gzeiras hakosef, but Taisus says it's hard to understand that, and therefore in one shot, Taisus says that when it says here that the plating of it will become aser as a beautification for Avoda Zara, it's only when there's a person that's actually serving it. If there's a person serving it, so then because someone is serving this for Avoda Zara and he's chayiv misa for doing it, then you could say that the tzipui, the plating of it that beautifies, and this thing and the person served becomes aser. But stam, if person didn't serve it yet, you can't say that it becomes aser, according to Taisvis. Another pshat, another point Taisvis says is B'chlal arguing on this whole thing. Taisvis actually brings this that he found in another place that Rashi himself says this pshat, that be'emes, the rock itself is an Avoda Zara. It's considered, a person is serving this rock, it is an Avoda Zara. But there's gzeiras hakosef that it's not going to be aser b'hana, and the reason is because when something is mechuber lekarka, this is naturally the way the Eibusha created it, the isser of hana does not apply to it. So here Rashi is saying that the object itself is not an Avoda Zara at all, and therefore it's mutter b'hana. Rashi in another place says the object is an Avoda Zara. Elamai, the Isser Hana that usually applies for Avoda Zara only applies to metaltlin, to movable things, but not the natural ground or rock that the Eibusha created. It's Mechubel Karka, that the Isser of Hana does not apply to that. Okay, that's part of the big discussion over here that you have in Taisus and the Rishonim on this subject. Rabbi Yosef Glili says, the Lashon of the Pasuk it says, and this is really the source of the what the Tanakama here says. It says Alekayim alaharim. You come into Eretz Yisrael and you see Alehayim alaharim. You see the Avoda Zaras that there are on the mountains, and you should destroy them and get rid of them. What do you learn from this? That v'lo yaharim elehayim, but the mountains themselves they do not become an Avoda Zara to be Asur Ba'ana. And then when the pasuk there says Leheim alak voice, you see there Avoda Zaras on the hills, and you have to destroy it. But v'leyak voice alehem. But the hills themselves are not an Avoda Zara that are Asur Ba'ana. Okay, so now if that's the case, the question then becomes, why would I not say the same thing regarding an Ashera tree? An Ashera tree is a tree of Avoda Zara that you should also say this pasuk there when it says Ha'alaharim alak voice. The pasuk there concludes and says V'sachas kol eitz ranon. Get rid of the Avoda Zara that's under the Eitz Ranon. So it says under. So you should say the same thing, that the tree itself, an Ashera tree, should be completely mutter. But that's not the case though. So Mipnema Ashera Asura. So why is the Ashera tree, the Avoda Zara tree, Asur to have any anah from it? The answer is because an Ashera tree is different. Mipnei sheyeshba tfisas yidei adam. Because an Ashera tree is different than just a rock or a earth. Over here, this is something that a person plants. And if it's something that the person planted, asr. Here it's different, and therefore this is going to be asr. Even the tree itself becomes asr bahana.
That means if they made the world, he didn't make an Asherah tree.
No, of course not. A tree that was planted there from before, and is being served as an Avoda Zara, according to what it's saying here, will be asr. If the person will be mutter, I meant to say, yeah, thank you, will be mutter. But if a person planted it, so then it's going to be asr. Iranidachas. Okay, it's a whole other thing. Whole other thing. Yeah, okay. Amar Rabbi Akiva. So now Rabbi Akiva, he explains this point that Rabbi Yossi Aglili is saying here, that there's a difference between the mountains and the hills that will not become Asur Ba'ana, but the tree, the Ashera tree, will. So Rabbi Akiva says, I'll explain to you how you understand the pasuk. Ani oivin v'adun lefanecha. I will understand this and explain to you and decide for you how you have to explain what the pasuk is saying here. Now, what the pasuk is really coming to say is, it's when Yidden come to Eretz Yisrael, the Eibush is telling Yidden when they come to Eretz Yisrael, get rid of the Avoda Zara, right? So the pasuk is telling Yidden, how are you going to find, how are you going to identify what is Avoda Zara? Everything is saturated with Avoda Zara. They're serving Avoda Zara all over. So the pasuk is telling you, when you'll see a Har Gavoya, you'll see a tall mountain, the Giva or a hill, Nasa, that's high up, or the Eitz Ranon, this beautiful, nice big tree, that will be a sign for you that that's the places where the Goyim have their Avoda Zara. There you should go and smash and get rid of their Avoda Zara. Meaning, so Rabbi Akiva, that is. Rabbi Akiva is pointing out over here that how do you learn Pshat in the pasuk? It's not coming to say that the mountain is Avoda Zara, the hill is Avoda Zara, the tree is Avoda Zara. It's not coming to say that. All these expressions in the pasuk is just coming to tell the Yidden to identify when you come into Eretz Yisrael, where are you going to find the Avoda Zaras? You'll find them in these kind of places. Okay, but still, according to even what Rabbi Akiva is saying, he's not arguing with Rabbi Yossi is saying. There's still a difference between the lashon of the pasuk alaharim haramim valakvois, and then when it says tachas kol eitz ranon, regarding hills and mountains over there, we do learn from the pasuk this point that the hills and the mountains themselves are going to be mutter. But regarding tachas kol eitz ranon, you can't say that. Because as Rashi brings, and we'll see in the Gemara, when it comes to an Ashera tree, there's a clear psukim that says, V'ashereyem tisrafum beish. You have to burn the Ashera tree in the fire. And also V'ashereyem tegadeyon. You have to get rid of the Ashera tree. So therefore, regarding the Ashera tree, we stick to the pshat that Rabbi Akiva is saying, that the pasuk, when it says, V'sachas kol eitz ranon, is just giving you a sign. Where are you going to find Avoda Zara? Regarding Haharam, Aram, and Valakvois, it's also coming to give you a sign where you'll find your Avoda Zara. But over there, because there's no place where the Torah says that you have to destroy it, we go back to the drasha that Rabbi Yossi clearly said that it's going to be mutter ba'ana. So to Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Aglili Haina Tanakama. It seems like that what Rabbi Yossi Aglili is saying is the exact same thing as the Tanakama. He's just bringing the drasha of the pasuk. So why is it bringing Rabbi Yossi Aglili Aimer? It sounds like that he's arguing on what the Tanakama said. Rami Bar Chama, that is, Rami Bar Chama says, Amar Reish Lakish, name of Reish Lakish, Tzipoy har kahar ikebenayo. When you have the plating of gold, silver on a mountain, whether it has the same status as the mountain itself, which is mutter, bahana, that's what they're arguing about. Tanakama Savar, the Tanakama holds, as he clearly says, Tzipoy har, that plating of the mountain, Enikahar, does not have the status like the mountain itself. The mountain itself is mutter ba'ana, but once you plate it, that's something that's on the mountain, that you add it, and that's going to be asr. Right? And so there the Tanakama understands when it says in the pasuk Eleheyem Alaharim by Veloy Haharim. So anything that you add, just like any other detached item, any other movable item is going to be asur ba'ana. So too, even if it's just plated on the mountain itself, it's not the mountain itself, and it's going to be asur umitzar. But Rabbi Yosef Glili Savar, however, Rabbi Yosef Glili says, Sipuy har, if you're plating the mountain with gold, silver, harei kahar. It's the same, has the same status like the mountain itself. And the reason is because you can't compare it to any other movable Avoda Zara. And once it's being plated on the mountain itself, just like the mountain itself is mutar ba'ana, so the plating is bottled, it's tafel, it's bottled to the mountain itself, and it'll also be mutar ba'ana. That's what Rabbi Yosef Glili, according to this pshat, is actually coming to be more lenient. Because the lashon of Rabbi Yosef Glili, when he says Eleheyem al harim v'loy haharim Eleheyem, so what he's saying is that the mountain, he's darshan lashon of the pasuk that the harim is not Eleheyem. So anything that's harim, anything that is harim, the plating is part of the harim itself. The Tanakama clearly pointed out that the tzipui, what you add, the gold that you add, masha aleyan, is going to be asur. Rabbi Yosef Glili doesn't say that. So therefore the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef Glili is saying that the mountain itself includes the plating. The plating is bottled to the mountain itself. Rav Shesha says, no. Even regarding the plating on the mountain, everybody will agree to what the Tanakama clearly said, that it's going to be asur. It's not bottled to the mountain itself. And Rabbi Yosef Glili is not coming to be lenient. He's actually coming to be more machmer. The kulam et sipihar enikahar. The plating is not like the mountain itself. And v'hacha be'ilon. So the argument between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yosef Glili is regarding a tree, the Ashera tree. Shenotoi, he planted it, and when he planted it, he planted a tree, not having in mind that this is an Avoda Zara tree. But then Then afterwards he came and he worshipped it as an Avoda Zara and he turned it into a Ashera tree. Kamifligi, this is what they're arguing about. So Tanakama Savar, the Tanakama holds Ilon Shanotoi, a tree that was planted, and then afterwards a person worshipped it as an Avoda Zara mutter. This tree is going to be mutter because this kind of a tree that the person planted, he didn't plant it l'shem Avoda Zara. It's the tree that the person planted. He planted its stam. So the fact that later he uses it l'shem Avoda Zara, it's not gonna be asur. Right, so the point over here is that according to the Tanakama, by the harim and the gvois over there, it is exactly the way it was. The Eibusha created these harim and gvois the way it is, so that is something that's going to be mutar ba'ana. But here, this tree that the person planted, so there's a tfisas yad odam. So since the person is the one that planted it, and he didn't plant it l'shem Avoda Zara, so therefore Rashi here, this is an interesting thing, a detail, the way Rashi learns pshat in the Gemara. What are we talking about over here? When a person is throwing a pit, a garden, he's throwing a pit into the ground to plant a tree, which means we're not talking about a case where you had this sapling, a little tree, and the person planted it in the ground. We're talking dafke about a garden, a pit that the person put into the ground, and he put it into the ground, shaloi l'shem Avoda Zara, and then later on, he came and served it as an Avoda Zara. According to the Tanakama, it's going to be mutter. Rabbi Yosef Glili Savar, however, Rabbi Yosef Glili says that Ilon Shanotoi Ulubisayf Avodai, this tree or this garden, this pit that the person planted, and then later on he came and he served it, asur. So this tree is going to be asur because this is called Tfisas Yad Adam that's going to asur it. Because he's the one that planted it, therefore it's going to be asur. Even though when he planted it, he didn't plant it l'shem Avoda Zara. Only later on he came and worshipped it as an Avoda Zara. But because he's the one that planted it, that's enough of a reason to come and asur it. Right? So the Tanakama says, since b'shas you planted it, you didn't plant it l'shem Avoda Zara. So you can't say that this tree has a tfisas yad adam that you planted it for Avoda Zara, and therefore it's different than a rock or a earth or whatever it is. Because no b'shas you did something, b'shas you planted it, you weren't doing it l'shem Avoda Zara. So therefore it's going to be like everything else that's mutter. But Rabbi Yosef Glili says, even if b'shas you were planting it, you didn't have a mind that it's for Avoda Zara, but because this tree grew from your action that you planted it, so it will become asur. It's different than a rock or anything else. So Rashi here though adds another detail that what part of this tree will be asur. only that part of the tree that continues growing after he decided to use it as an Avoda Zara. The roots of the tree, or the beginning, the tree that he planted lechatchila, and then he wasn't using it as an Avoda Zara, is not going to be aser. The tree that what grows later, that's the part that's going to be aser according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili is coming to be more machmer. Now the Gemara proves it from the lashon. You see, there's an extra lashon here in what Rabbi Yossi Aglili said. Mimai, how do I know? Where do I see this in the lashon of Rabbi Yossi Aglili is coming to be machmer? The Diktani Seifa, because the lashon of Yossi Aglili in the Seifa is mipnei ma asher asura. He then asks the question, why is an asher a tree aser? Why is it different than a rock? Mipnei sheyesh ba tfisas yad adam. Because this is something that the person is doing something, he planted it. Now then he adds, v'chol sheyesh ba tfisas yadei adam. Anything that has the action of the person, his hands that he did this, aser. It'll be aser. So the Gemara says, "V'chol sheyesh ba tfisas yidei adam lasuyamai." That added line that he says, anything that the person did something, it'll be aser. It just said that the difference is that he planted it. So the v'chol, what is it coming to add? So lav, don't you think that the pshat here is lasuye ilon shenatoy lebesayf avodai? It's coming to say that not only if when you put the pit into the ground, you lechatchila planted it l'shem avodah zara, then it's clear. Then it makes sense to say that you understand that this is the person that planted. He made this avodah zara. But even if when you planted it wasn't l'shem avodah zara, but then later he worshipped it as an avodah zara, it will become aser. That's the added chumrah of Rabbi Yossi Aglili.
So which part you said is going to be mutter?
It's going to be aser according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili.
If Chatchila was not, and then it became a Zara.
Yeah.
So one part should be not the Avoda Zara.
Whatever was there from before is not Avoda Zara, but what grows afterwards will be aser for Avoda Zara.
Top is not.
Now, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda agrees to this as well. He also holds that Ilon Shenotay L'B'Seif Avodai, a tree that you planted, and then later on you decided to worship it as an Avoda Zara, aser. It becomes aser. The Tanya, because in the Brayse we learned, Rabbi Yossi says, the pasuk says, Elihayim alaharim, that there are Avodah Zaras that are on the mountains. V'lo yaharim Elihayim, but the mountains themselves do not become aser b'noz and Avodah Zara. And Elihayim ala gvois, the Avodah Zaras on the hills, v'lo gvois Elihayim. The hills themselves are not an Avodah Zara. So now, going on to the next part of the pasuk, Shemei Yani, I would think to say that you should say that also when it says Sachas kol eis ranon, beneath these beautiful tall trees, that only what's beneath the tree is going to be aser for Avodah Zara. But v'loi, the Bach says, v'loi eitz ranon eleheyem, but the tree itself should not be an Avodah Zara. That's what I would think. I would make this kind of a distinction. So Talmud Loimar. So therefore, we have another pasuk where it clearly says va'ashedeyem, the Avodah Zara trees tisser from beish. You have to burn them in the fire. So it clearly says over here that Avodah Zara, the trees that are Avodah Zara have to be burnt in the fire. Okay, so now how's the Gemara proving that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Yossi Aglili that no matter what the person's intention was when he planted the tree itself will become aser? Because if Rabbi Yossi Aglili would hold like the Tanakama, that not always does the tree become aser. Depends what your kavanah was when you were planting the tree. So then, why is Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda over here saying that when it says Tachas Kol Eitz Ranon, that we can't interpret this to mean that the tree itself is mutter, just like we're saying regarding the hills and the mountains that are mutter? You could still dash it that way. You could say that when the person planted it, not having in mind to serve it as an Avodah Zara, and then he only decided to serve it later, that it'll be mutter. So you could still dash it just like it says regarding the hills and the mountains. The fact that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda is saying that a tree is always going to be aser. The pasuk says you have to burn it in the fire. That shows that he agrees to the point that we just said, the chumrah of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that when it comes to a tree, it doesn't matter what his intention was when he was planting it, because there's a tfisas yad adam. The fact is that this tree came from the person that planted it. It's never compared to a mountain or a hill, and you have to burn it in the fire. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi Aglili also holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So now the pasuk, the Gemara goes on, the Brayse here goes on to explain, Elo tachas kol eitz ranon lomali. When the pasuk says this tachas eitz kol ranon, what is the pasuk coming to say? So it brings what Rabbi Akiva said in the Mishnah. Aulika the Rabbi Akiva, the way Rabbi Akiva explained this, who the asa, the Amar Rabbi Akiva said, Ani oivim va'adon lefanecha. I'll understand and I'll explain you and I'll show you how you have to learn this pasuk. When it comes Makom Shata Moitze Har Gavoya, what the pasuk is coming to say is the Eibush is giving us Yidden a sign. Where are you going to find the Gaims of Avodah Zara? where you see a tall mountain, or the giva, and a hill, nasa, high hill, the eitz rana, nice big tree, dash yeshem avodas gechavim. That's where you have to know, that's where the Avoda Zara is. And therefore, regarding eitz ranon, we say that it's only a sign for where the location of the Avoda Zara is, not more. But the tree itself has to actually be burnt in the fire. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, Rabbanan, but according to the Tanakhama, the Rabbanan disagree with this. The Rabbanan say that the tree doesn't always have to be burnt in the fire. If a person planted the tree with no kavanah to serve it as Avoda Zara, even if later he decides to serve it as Avoda Zara, it's mutter. So according to the Rabbanan, and tisrafun be'esh, my avdilei. So how do they interpret this? The pasuk says that you have to burn the Avoda Zara tree in the fire. What is it saying? So the Gemara says, mi bayalei. The answer is, well, the way they understand this pasuk is, li'ilon shenatem etchila lekach. Even the Rabbanan agree. If it's a tree that the person planted lechatchila for Avoda Zara, so that the Rabbanan agree that it has to be burnt in fire. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, so that the Gemara asks now if that's the case. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, nami mi bayalei lahachi. So why wouldn't Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda say the same? That when it says that you have to burn the Ashera tree, it's only in a case where the person lechatchila planted it for this purpose. How does he know to say that this includes even in a case where the person planted it lechatchila stam as the tree and he only served it later? So the Gemara says you're right. Hachanami. This pasuk, Asherei and tisrafun be'esh, is when the person planted it lechatchila for Avoda Zara. So elo ilon shenatay. So a tree that was planted stam. And later he went and served it as Avoda Zara. From where did you know that even this is also going to be aser? And I don't compare it to a hill or a mountain. So the answer is nafkalei. He learns it out from a second pasuk. It says the pasuk says that from the ashera tree has to be cut off. So what is it over here? It uses a different term. It says burning, that vasherayim tisrafun, and here it says vasherayim tegadeyon. What's the term tegadeyon? Zeu eitz shegiduay aser v'ikrei muter. Which tree is it that the branches you have to cut off, but the roots of the tree or the trunk of the tree could still be muter? Have a omer. So that means what we're talking about, ilon shenatay, a tree that was planted and was planted stam. And then he worshipped it as an Avoda Zara later. So therefore, this kind of tree, you don't have to burn it completely, destroy it completely, because there's the part of the tree that you planted lechatchila, and only later what grew later, and you worshipped it as an Avoda Zara, that has to be that has to be cut off. Therefore, this second pasuk is teaching that even this tree is also going to be aser. But the Gemara asks on this pshat, but going back to the lashon of the Braise, that's not what Rabbi Yehuda said. If you look into the words of the Braise, he clearly says that his source, that you have to burn all trees, including a tree that wasn't planted lechatchila l'shem Avoda Zara, he brings the pasuk v'ashereim tisr from be'esh, not the pasuk v'ashereim tekadein that we're quoting now. So the Gemara says the way to learn the Braise is as follows. Ilu loy nema ka'oma. The Braise is not telling you that pasuk v'ashereim tisrfun be'esh is actually directly the source that every tree has to be burnt. What it's saying is, if it would not say v'ashereim tisrfun be'esh, now the Gemara explains what this means. Ilu loy nema tisrfun be'esh. If it would not say this pasuk of tisrfun be'esh, so then I would have only one pasuk. Then I would say that when it says v'ashereim tegadeyun, that you should cut off the ashera tree, I would say it means be'ilon shenatim etchil lekach. Since I have only one tree, I would say that it's only referring to a tree that was planted lechatchila for this purpose. And even though it's a little bit of a daichik in the pasuk, because tegadeyun sounds like that there's a part of the tree that you can keep, you just have to cut off. But over here, if it was planted lechatchila for Avoda Zara, you have to get rid of the entire tree. But if there was only one pasuk, I would say that tegadeyun means cut off the entire tree. But now that I have a second pasuk, and it also says that there's the ashera tree that you have to burn. So so now I have a second pasuk. I have an extra pasuk of ashereim tegadeyon, and I learn it literally that this is li'ilon shenatai. It's a tree that was planted ulubisayif avadai, and only later he decided to worship it as an Avoda Zara, and therefore it's saying tegadeyon. You don't have to burn the entire tree, but you have to burn or get rid of, cut off the added parts of the tree that were served later as an Avoda Zara. Those are the two psukim. Now, the Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, what do I need these two psukim? The Rabbanon say only the tree that was lechatchila planted as an Avoda Zara will be asabana. So hi, ashereyim to gadeyan. This second pasuk, that you have to cut off the asherah tree. What do they learn from this? So the Gemara says a completely different thing. Look at the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi taught gidui avodas kechavim, cutting down these trees of Avoda Zara, kaidmin lekibush Eretz Yisrael, comes before conquering Eretz Yisrael. But kibush Eretz Yisrael kaidim lebir avodas kechavim. Conquering Eretz Yisrael comes before completely eradicating the entire Avoda Zara. What the Gemara is basically saying is, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, as soon as you see all these Asherah trees and all Avoda Zaras that there are, smash it, get rid of it, cut it off. But don't take the time to completely get rid of all the Avoda Zara. Then you have to go and conquer Eretz Yisrael. And then when you're done conquering Eretz Yisrael, come back and completely destroy and get rid of this Avoda Zara. That's the order. So therefore, it says Tigadeon first, then conquer, and then Tisserfon. And later you're going to burn it completely. The Tana Rav Yosef also explained this regarding other psukim that it says regarding getting rid of Avoda Zara and Eretz Yisrael. The pasuk says, "V'nitatztem es mizbechaysam." What does that sound like? Smash their altars. They're from Avoda Zara. And that what sounds like v'hanach. You could smash it, but then leave it. It also says, "V'shibartem es matzevaysam." Break their matzevis for Avoda Zara. That sounds like v'hanach. You can leave it. So the question is, Hanach, it's just enough to smash it and you can leave it, Salkadaitach, would you think that that's enough? Sreife boy, but you have to burn it. It says, just like it says regarding the Asherah tree, that you have to burn it. Also regarding all the other Avodah Zaras, it says clearly in the pasuk that you have to burn it in the fire. Rashi brings the pasuk, Psile Elikei Tisserfon. All Avodah Zaras have to be totally burnt. So Elamai, what's the pshat? So Amar Rav Hona says, Redoif, first, chase the Goyim out of Eretz Yisrael, conquer the land, and only afterwards do you burn the Avodah Zaras completely. Right? So as soon as you come into Eretz Yisrael, smash the Avodah Zaras, but then conquer the land, chase out the Goyim, and then you'll come back and completely burn the Avodah Zaras. So that's according to the Rabbanon, that's what the pasuk Asherem Tegadein is saying. As soon as you enter, cut down the trees. Now, so the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, Hai Svara Minole, Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda that uses the two psukim of Asherem Tisserfon and Tegadeon to teach regarding the trees that no matter if it's planted lechatchila for Avodah Zara or even if not, you always have to get rid of it. So from where does he know this point that we're learning here, the order of how you have to get rid of the Avodah Zara when you enter into Eretz Yisrael? So Nafkele, he learns it out from a different pasuk. When it's regarding Avodah Zara, it says a double lashon mi abed to abedon. What's a double lashon to destroy the Avodah Zara? Abed, first initially smash the Avodah Zara, and then v'achakach to abdon. After you'll finish conquering the land, then you'll totally destroy it and get rid of it. That's from this double lashon you see this. But Rabbanon, so now according to the Rabbanon, what do they learn from this double lashon? Haimi boyele, this double lashon of abed to abdon. For this teaches actually an additional point. That when you're coming to uproot Avodah Zara, shetzarech l'sharish achareh. Not only is it not enough to burn it, and it's not, in other words, again, not only is it not enough to just cut it down, but it's not even enough also to burn it either. You have to uproot the roots under the ground completely. That's what you learn out from this double lashon. This detail that your mamish have to get rid of all the roots under the ground as well. From where does he learn this halacha? Nafkele, he learns it out from another pasuk. It says, get rid of any identity, any name of Avodah Zara from this place. So that's adding this, that you have to even uproot even the roots that are under the ground as well. Rabbanon, so according to the Rabbanon that know that already from the pasuk Abed to Abdon, so what do they learn out from this pasuk V'ibadatem es Shemam? They learn out from there another din, L'chanes Loshem. From here you learn out that when you're referring to Avodah Zara, don't refer to the Avodah Zara with its original name, which is usually a name that has some honorable expression to the Avodah Zara. Give it a nickname which is derogatory. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, how do we know that when someone's uprooting Avodah Zara, you have to uproot it completely, even the roots under the ground? Talmud Loima v'ibadatem es Shemam, that you have to uproot the name completely. But Amalei Rabbi Kiva says to this, but Valei Kvar Nemar, the pasuk that we have already a different source. The pasuk says Abed to Abdon. The double lashon of uprooting means like we explained before, according to the Rabbanan, to uproot it completely. When it says they uproot its name from this place, what it means is Lachanis Lashem. Give it a nickname. And now he says Yochel Shvach, I would think you give it a nickname that's going to be praiseworthy, something that's in the positive. The Gemara interjects right away and explains the Shvach Sol Kedaitach. I would think that you should give it a nickname, something that's positive. Ella, the Gemara explains Yochel Lo L'Shvach for Lo L'Gnai, that changed the name. To remove the name of Avoda Zara, it would be enough to just give it any other name. It doesn't have to be positive, it doesn't have to be negative. So Talmud Leimar, the pasuk says, Shaketz to Shaktzenu, V'sayev to Sa'avenu, Kicheirem Hu, which means that it should be abominable in your eyes, and you should be completely use a name that's going to bring out the negative of the Avoda Zara. So Haketza, what does this mean? An example is Hoya Kairanois of Beis Galia. If it had a name of Beis Galia, which Rashi says Galia means that it's tall and it's high up, Gali. Kairanaisa switched the name to Beis Karya. Karya means something that's dug, a pit in the ground, low down. Give it a nickname that shows how low it is. Or Ein Kol, if it has a name like Ein Kol, the eyes of everything, give it a name of Ein Kaitz, the eyes of a thorn. Now, this is the added halacha according to Rabbanon that you learn out from Abe to Abdon, or from Vibatem Shmom and Amakamu, to give it this derogatory name.